First of all, a warm welcome. Today we are testing the Sunova Flatwater Faast Pro, the board for shallow water in 14 by 23. Costs currently still €2,800. I say up to date, since there will be a price increase this year according to information of the manufacturer. Who orders now, gets it in any case still for this price. The board has 273 liters. We have in this test the Sunova Flatwater Faast Pro in 14 by 23. A board that this time is not made in a carbon fiber sandwich, but in a balsa sandwich. We have an EPS core, but the carbon fiber is replaced by balsa wood in the outer shell. The balsa is laid in longitudinal direction, which can be seen very nicely in the whole structure, and covered with glass fiber for the tightness. We have a very nice clean processing, everything is very evenly without any corners and edges, which makes a very good optical impression. Compared to a glass fiber sandwich, we have a slightly higher compressive strength because the sandwich is thicker on the outside. This board is a dropped board. We have an imaginary deck line of 18 centimeters in height in the standing area, and the whole deck is lowered by 9 centimeters so that we stand on imaginary 9 centimeters above the water surface. We have a slight domed deck in the standing area, which means that the middle part is rounded again and you stand on a slight lateral arch. The entire stand area can be up to 53 centimeters wide. The board is equipped with 2 automatic ventilation screws, one in the bow area and one in the stern area. The difference in temperature and pressure inside the board is automatically compensated by the valves. We have a handle that is positioned so that the board lies balanced in the hand and is therefore easy to carry. Sunova uses only one part of EVA for the base. The gluing is normally simple. The standing area only covers the area in which I paddle as standard in the sprint or in the parallel foot position, i.e. not in the surf stance, because then the distance is not quite sufficient. Everything else up to the stern pad, where there is also a tail kick, is a standing area. Here a resin was applied and here is a silicone material, which guarantees the stability. This is however bad to see and to show for you optically, since it is completely transparent. This was done to make the board look so nice with the wood. Schlecht zu sehen, schlecht optisch für uns auch einzufangen für euch, weil komplett transparent. Macht man natürlich halt, damit das Board so schön aussieht mit dem Holz, nicht? The lower deck of course has drain holes. Each side has 2. These are realized with finished plastic tubes and therefore they are smooth on the inside. On the outside they are covered by small GFK bowls. These are handmade, so not all are 100% the same. The transitions are evenly flowing, so there are no corners or edges that could influence the flow. The total weight of the Sunova Faast Pro in 14 by 23 including the fin is 11.7 kilograms. If we look at the underwater hull of the Faast Pro in 14 by 23, then we see that Sunova goes very strongly contoured waves here. We have here only a very short flat planing area, which changes immediately into a light concave and then has in the rear part the deepest concave so far, of the boards already tested by us. This medium-wide concave then changes into very strongly beveled rails. This means that the rest of the underwater hull is very steeply sloping, a similar concept as we have already seen on starboard, but which is more blatant here due to much more slant on the wider part. At the end the whole thing ends in a deep even concave. If we look at the transition to the rail, we see an almost sharp edge going through, so not the classic tucked-at edge, the rounding of the underwater hull and the lateral rail, but the whole thing is provided with a slight edge, and then the whole rail has a slight rounding. Everything here looks very beautifully harmoniously shaped. I am curious whether this harmonious feeling will continue on the water.
Harmonisch auch geformt aus. Wir sind sehr gespannt, ob sich dieses harmonische Gefühl auf dem Wasser auch so fortsetzt.
The Sunova fin is mounted on a US box and allows 2 centimeters of variation from the trim in terms of turning pleasure or directional stability. Altogether the whole thing is equipped with a leash plaque at the end, in the classic form, as you know it from other boards so far. On tilting stability, primary stability when climbing up shows a playful behavior. The board goes back and forth, not uncontrolled, but very playful. If I then go further and load one side considerably more, I quickly land in a boundary. So there is a progressive force development or counter force development at this point. So at a certain point I notice that this would be the end and I would fall if I continued to provoke it. This point can be determined very well.
Dass ich an einem bestimmten Punkt wirklich merke, hier ist Schluss. Wenn ich es jetzt provozieren würde, dann bin ich weg. Also sehr gut selber zu ermitteln.
In shallow water, when I lie the board completely on the water surface and have not loaded any side anymore, I have an excellent directional stability. The nose pierces the middle and leads to the fact that we only run straight ahead. But as soon as I load one of the sides more and have the paddle on the corresponding or opposite side, I immediately have an effect. We have a relatively round outline in the front area, where I actively use the paddle. That means, if I turn the side, the nose might slip sideways. How does it actually come to the excellent directional stability? As I just mentioned, we have a relatively strong concave, no flat surfaces, so no parallel surfaces and then immediately the beveled rails. The moment I am, the load on this concave is completely identical over the entire area. If I turn around now, one side of the concave and one rail side more comes to the fore, which means that the board can react immediately. The controllability is explained here via the rails. The same applies to the turning pleasure. The rails are used actively. If I use them and load one side more and paddle also on the side, then this leads to the fact that the board is drifted clearly to the side or can be steered. I paddle on the other side, so I load the left side and paddle on the right. These two forces work against each other. The paddle pushes in one direction, the board in the other. With this I can again improve my directional stability. So it is very easy to influence whether it turns or not. It shows with the turning joy out of the speed, so if I want to turn the board actively with a crossbow turn, that the nose at relatively high speed still keeps the board well in track. If I reduce the speed, the round rails come into their own again. These loosen nicely and I can turn on the water, even if I don't turn backwards on the board. If I go backwards and make a weight shift towards the pivot turn, I don't have to go backwards to the kick pad to loosen the edges. Since they are round, the board turns relatively fast, which is especially good for lighter riders or beginners who don't want to move on such a narrow board yet. The experienced rider, the racer, has the advantage that he goes backwards and can turn evenly. If I accelerate the board from a standing position, I notice a nice light-footedness, similar to the already tested board from Kona. The absolute speed is a bit more limited in the end and I can't get beyond a certain point, but the movement is very uniform. The tempo doesn't drop much and I don't have to hit it hard with every shot. The speed keeps itself nicely even and protects the forces. For the technicians and detail lovers, 13.7 was the absolute top speed, almost 14, and we don't notice any power peaks. It runs smoothly and uniformly.
So, und für die Techniker oder für die Detailversessenen 13,7 war die absolute Spitzengeschwindigkeit, ich würde sagen fast 14. Und wir merken eben keine Kraftspitzen, also es läuft schön gleichförmig durch.
The running smoothness of the board is very good. It doesn't vibrate, doesn't swing up and stays calm in the track. The big advantage of a uniform movement is that the rider does not have to concentrate on balancing the board and absorbing the vibrations, but can paddle and there is no splash water that could obstruct the view or be unpleasant. There is also no water at the front that could slow down or reduce the current. With the board you can play really nice. You have it under control as long as you have practice. So as mentioned before, I can go on one or the other rail, can counteract, can support a rotation with the board. The possibilities that the board offers via the round outlines in the front area make it very playful and flexible, but it must have a corresponding skill, or you fall into the water, which is also not quite tragic. At Sunova we have the largest range of rider weights. From 55 kilograms on with a lady who can control it 12 through the round rails, you don't have to go very far back to move it. This playful behavior of the board is an advantage here. With heavier riders, the concave stabilizes and we still don't get too deep into the waterline. Even up to 100 kilograms there is no restriction here. The Sunova Flatwater has incredible potential. If you're just starting out with race paddling, you'll succeed very well with the board. Medium to low riding ability is suitable for this board. However, you grow and get better and better with your abilities and can use all the possibilities of this board. Racers can play with the rails, have the edges at their disposal, can go all the way back, make even faster turns. From the beginner to the professional, everyone can have fun with the board. Let's sum it all up again. We have a mixture of the starboard and the Kona that we had in the test in terms of handling and dynamics. On the one hand an incredibly good track guidance, on the other hand I can play with it and change direction quickly like with a Kona. The price is €2,800 below the starboard and makes your wallet laugh. And it's a balsa board that is visually beautiful and has a different dynamic. We love it.
Thank you.